Hello everybody, this is Santi and today we're taking a look at Welcome Back to the Dungeon, a really cool, small and simple game in which you're choosing which player is going to enter the dungeon, in which you have introduced some little and some crazy strong monsters. Let's take a look at it so you can get an overall picture. Okay, so this is how Welcome Back to the Dungeon looks like. In this game, you're trying to enter the dungeon in which you have introduced some creatures and some monsters that you're trying to defeat in order to win 2 of these trophies. How are you going to do that? Well, at the beginning of each turn, one player is going to choose a character that is going to enter the dungeon. So I choose the ninja. So this character has some special equipment tiles that will help me kill the monsters that are inside of the dungeon, as well as give me some extra health points. So this player has 3, 3, and 5, that's 11 health points. So now we're going to prepare the deck of monsters that are going to be able to enter the dungeon. How are we going to do that? Well, we take this special creatures deck and we take randomly 2 of these creatures, let's say this one, and we introduce it into the normal deck of monsters. So we mix this a little bit. Whatever. And this is the deck that is allowed to enter into the dungeon. So, during your turn, what are you going to do? You can choose between passing, so you won't participate in this turn again, or you can choose to take one of these creatures, and you can do 2 things. You can introduce it in the dungeon, or you can choose to not put it in the dungeon, discarding one of the equipment tiles of this character. So let's say I take this out in order to not introduce this monster in the dungeon. So that was my turn. So next player turn, he can do the same. He can choose between introducing the monster in the dungeon or discarding one of the tiles of the equipment of the ninja. So next turn of the player, let's say he introduces, I take out, he introduces, this one takes out this 5, so now he's in 6 health points. I pass, and this one passes. So that player is forced to enter the dungeon and defeat all the monsters that are inside the dungeon. So he will have to reveal the cards that are here, and these creatures will make some damage and he will lose some health points, or he can destroy these monsters with this special equipment tiles. So what can happen? If he defeats these monsters, he's going to win 1 trophy immediately. In the moment a player has won 2 of these trophies, he is the winner and the game ends. But if he doesn't defeat all the monsters that are inside the dungeon, he will lose 1 health point, and another turn will begin. But if he loses his 2nd health point, he will immediately die and get out of the game. So the game only continues between these 2 players. So once the character has entered the dungeon, he sees if he has defeated all the monsters, in which case he earns this trophy, or if he hasn't defeated all the monsters, so he will lose 1 health point. If he loses the 2nd one, he dies, and the game continues between these 2 players. So what we do next is we shuffle again the special monsters deck with the normal monster deck, and we choose another character from the game. Let's say I choose the bard, and another turn begins until one of the players has earned 2 trophies, or there's only one player alive in the game. So that's basically how the game works. So let's go and take a look at my top 3 about Welcome Back to the Dungeon. Well, the third thing I like the most about Welcome Back to the Dungeon are these characters we have here. In Welcome Back to the Dungeon, we have 4 different characters, and each one feels different. And that's the thing I like a lot, because each turn feels different depending on which character you chose at the beginning of the turn. As you see, we have the Necromancer here, which is a really tough guy that allows you to be a little bit braver, and you say, oh, there are a lot of monsters here, maybe with the Necromancer I can do it. Then you have the Bard one that really depends on if the monsters are have a number of strength even or odd, and that's something cool. It's a little bit more of a luck factor. Then you have the princess, which is really difficult, but she kills those tough monsters, and this one is one that depends a lot if you have the equipment or if you don't have the equipment. Then we have the ninja, that is a little bit like the necromancer, but not so rough, and so he's a little bit more careful than the necromancer. They feel really different, each of the 4 characters, and that's something I like a lot because it gives the game, each game, a little bit more of diversity, and it feels different each turn. That's something I really appreciate a lot about this. The second thing I like the most about Welcome to the Dungeon is all this bluffing aspect about, I wouldn't enter the dungeon if I were you, or that is nothing, and you're introducing the dragon, which is has 9 strength, and I don't know, that's something I really like, and I think it works really good in this game because each person is like, that's easy, or the other one is, oof, I wouldn't enter it, but he's not passing. So you have to read how each person is playing, and that's something I like a lot. I think the bluffing in this game works perfectly, so that's something I like a lot. But the thing I like the most about Welcome Back to the Dungeon is it's easy. And it's involving. I think it's a really simple game that I can explain really quickly to people that are new to this game, and it is still involving. I mean, you are involved from the first time you're playing it because it's that simple. And it has these mechanics that make you a little bit involved, and this bluffing thing, and I don't know, I think it's a game that has a really good aspect in that way, that it involves every player, no matter if it's its first time, its 5th time, or it has played a lot of times. So that's the thing I like the most about Welcome Back to the Dungeon, that it's easy but still involving. So let's go and take a look to my ratings. Okay, so for the theme, I'm gonna give Welcome Back to the Dungeon an 8. I'm gonna give it an 8 because I think that the theme is kind of cool. It's not your typical medieval game in which it's medieval fantasy, right? But it's you're a knight or a princess or whatever medieval Middle Earth, whatever fantasy universe, right? But it has a different feeling because you're like entering the dungeon to kill the monsters, and the game is not about just killing the monsters, but all the process about choosing which monsters are going to be in the dungeon. And I think it's a really cool theme, but the reason I'm gonna give it an 8 is because it's really involving. It's a game that really makes you feel that you're entering the dungeon and that you're taking a risk when you're entering. So that's something I like a lot. As I say, the theme is really typical, but it has this new aspect or this new point of view. But what really is good about this theme is that it's involving. It's an involving theme, and that's something I like a lot. So that's the reason I'm gonna give it an 8. For the mechanics, I'm gonna give this game a 9. I'm gonna give it a 9 because I know it's a simple game, but the mechanics in this game just work brilliantly. They work really neat, they go really fast, really quick, they're simple. Anyone that plays this game knows how to play it. I mean, it's a really cool and well-designed game. The reason I'm gonna give it a 9 and not a 10 is because the game is from 2 up to 4 players, and with 4 is a blast. But with 2, nah. With 3, okay, the best without doubt is with 4 players. With 2, it's really poor because it's like you against me. So that's something I don't like. And I think that this game is really a 4-player game, or maybe a 3-player game, but definitely not a 2-player game. Also, I think something I like a lot about the mechanics in this game is that it changes a lot if you're in the winning position or if you're in the losing position. Because if you're in the losing position, or if someone is almost winning, all the players are gonna be like, we have to get this dungeon, make it really, really hard for this one to win. So then that winning player is gonna be a little bit more scared about the dungeon, and maybe someone enters and wins and beats the dungeon and all the monsters that are inside it. So that's something I like a lot. How the game changes if you're in the winning position or if you're in a losing position. So that's something really cool about the mechanics in this game. So that's the reason I'm gonna give it a 9, because it's really cool, but it plays better clearly with 4 or 3 players. So let's go and take a look to the art and the components. Okay, so my rating for the art and the components of Welcome Back to the Dungeon is going to be a 9. It's going to be a 9 because the artwork of this game, it's really cool, really cartoony and fun, and the component quality is almost perfect. Let's see, we have here the rule book, which is really small and really handleable. That's really good. It's really easy to manage. The instructions are well written. You have some details for every tile you have. That's something cool. It's really easy and it's really tiny, as you can see, as the box. The box is really tiny, but it's perfect because you don't need more space than this. And that's something really good because a lot of games have a lot of space in the box that you don't really need. This makes the game easy to carry, to take almost anywhere, and you don't need more space for all the components you have. So that is excellent. The box is good. It's thick cardboard. The design of the box is just good, so that's a good box. And then we have the cards, which are like the main component of the game. We have the creature cards, which are really good. I think that the artwork of these cards is really amazing. You have this this cartoony almost artwork of the creatures. You have this skull, this goblin here, this, I don't know what this is, but it's really scary. You have an orc, you have a rock, a giant or something. You have this like crazy bunny here. I don't know, this one is really fun for me. You have the dragon that has a 9 strength. Yeah, I don't know, the art is really cool. It's really well done. It's really well produced. The cards are okay. They're a really bit smooth. For me, I would prefer a really more rough surface, but that's okay. The art is the strong thing about these cards. I think the art of the cards is really just good and amazing, and it's really fun. It's really cartoony. We have the back part of these cards with the dungeon that looks really scary with a lot of monsters awaiting inside. And then we have these cards that are for taking track of your health points, and they have here the amount of cards that are in the monsters deck, which is really cool because it might help you during the game, because you know what cards you have introduced, and maybe you say, oh, I've introduced 2 goblins, so no one else introduced another goblin. So that's quite cool. Then we have this trophy cards, which are just alright. You have this thumbs up medal here. They're okay. As the same, all the cards are the same, are this smooth surface, which I don't like a lot, but it's okay, it's just fine. Then we have this board. This is something I appreciate a lot. When card games have a board, that is something good for me. It's just silly, but I don't know, I think it gives the game a little bit more of consistency. And so this board, you can see, has a lot of details which I find really cool. You have this gate with the light there, you have the harp from the bard, you have a shield there, you have the bomb of the ninja, you have a lost medal there. I think this board is really cool, and it's just a silly thing for taking track of the health points of the character, but I think it's really cool, and I like it a lot. The cardboard is thick, it's a good component, good quality, just excellent. Then we have this wooden token. I know this is silly. I know this is just another wooden piece and component, but when they put this in the game, it shows me that they took care and they put a lot of effort and love to this game, because they could have put just a normal red wooden token, but they put this one with a red tail of a dragon. It's just cool. When I saw that, I was like, whoa, that's a special component. And yeah, it's only for taking track of the health points of the character. But that's something cool, and that's something I like. And finally, we have the tiles of the characters, which I think they are amazing. They are this thick cardboard, like the board. This is good component, good quality. I don't think this will ever break. And as you can see, we have the main thing of the tile, of each tile. In this case, the bard or the sword, they're like in a plastic thing. I don't see. You see? There, that it's a little bit shiny. These are really cool, they're really good, and the artwork for this, as the same as the monster, is just really good, really funny, really almost cartoony, and it's different for each character. You see, this bard is a little bit more like a royal bard. Then we have the necromancer, which is kind of a wizard and a little bit darker and a little bit more scary. With this cloak, the evil cloak, you have the bloody wand. I don't know, this one feels like a little bit more scary. Then you have the princess, which is definitely a tough princess with the chain for the dragon, with this gigantic sword, with the crown there. The components of this tiles are excellent. And then we have the ninja with the shuriken, with the bomb, with a lot of things, really cool things. And the artist, it's almost the same. It's really cartoony, really almost making fun of that character. I think these are really good artwork for those characters. So that's something I appreciate a lot. I think the art and the components of this game are just excellent. So that's the reason I'm going to give it a 9. So let's go and take a look at my final rating about Welcome Back to the Dungeon. Well, my final rating for Welcome Back to the Dungeon is going to be a 9. It's going to be a 9 because it's an almost perfect filler. It's a game that is really simple, it's really fun, it's really involving. Every time I play it, it's a blast. It's a game and you don't have to think that much. It's more about feeling the game and getting involved in the story, and it always works. This is a game that I don't know, I can't think of a situation in which this game has been boring or hasn't worked. Well, maybe except with 2 players, that's the reason it's a 9 and not a 10. But it's just amazing. It's just a really good game, a really good, small, almost tiny game. I would recommend it to you if you're looking for a filler or for a small game. This is a really good one, and really good components and really good artwork, really good mechanics, really good everything. So that's the reason I'm gonna give it a 9. So I'm gonna give Welcome Back to the Dungeon a seal of excellence! Woohoo!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.